Hello, all you Cine-Pickers out there. Welcome to Cine-Picks, the show where we take turns picking movies for each other. This is Michaela, and I am Kevin. The next movie we're going to talk about is the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, Sponge on the Run. And so this is a one of the very few new releases coming out this year. And so, Michaela, can you give us a quick, rundown synopsis? What is a Sponge on the Run?
So I took some notes,
Wow.
but I stopped after a while because I wrote subplots on here because after a while I started getting very confused about what this movie was about
Mm-hmm.
because there are a bunch of different subplots. The main one is that this is a film that takes place in the daily lives of SpongeBob SquarePants and all the characters within that universe. Basically, what happens is King Poseidon decides to steal all of the snails in Bikini Bottom to use them as his own personal beauty slaves. And so that's the main subplot is Gary's kidnapped by Poseidon and SpongeBob and Patrick go on yet another epic road trip to retrieve Gary. But also there's other subplots, like Sandy creating an AI that wants to take over the world. And she's trying to like sell it to Mr. Krabs and prove its worth or something. And then there's Plankton trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula, and then there's everybody dealing with SpongeBob being absent because he's trying to get a snail back, which, by the way, could have been fixed if SpongeBob just was transparent with everybody in the film and was like, hey, somebody stole my snail, I have to go take care of that. But he doesn't. He just leaves. And so everybody is just completely lost without him. So yeah, those are all the subplots. The main plot is Gary is kidnapped by King Poseidon. SpongeBob and Patrick have to get him back.
Right.
Why'd you pick this movie for me, Kevin?
So it popped up on Netflix, and I've been wanting to watch this movie for a while, and I didn't even know that it had come out yet. And so all of a sudden it showed up on Netflix, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm going to watch this movie. Because I've been excited about this movie. I've been wanting to watch it for a long time. Ever since I saw the first trailer for it, the animation style, I really like this animation style. I don't know what the actual name for it is. I call it digital stop motion because it's basically
Yeah,
it looks like stop
I wrote
motion, but it's
Claymation.
yeah, it looks like stop motion, but it's digital. And I've there's been a couple movies like this. The Lego movies are similar animation style, and there was the
Hmm.
Peanuts movie that came out a couple years ago, had very similar style. So
Yep.
and I
Kubo and the Two Strings is another one too.
yeah.
But Kubo was actually Kubo was straight up stop motion.
Yeah, well,
Um,
Kubo, yeah,
it was
no,
beautiful, but
the
still, yeah.
Kubo the Who's yeah, that's just straight up stop motion. This is digital stop motion, which is I don't yeah, I still I don't know a lot about the process of how it works or whatever, but I really like the style. After I watched this movie, immediately after I finished it, I wrote a long review and posted it on my Facebook page, right? And then yeah, and then I think you suggested that we should. You commented on there, it's
I
like
did.
maybe we should do this as a cinepick, and I was
I
like,
did.
definitely, because I want to talk about this movie because it was
Right.
so bad. I was amazed, speechless. I could not believe how bad this movie was. I think
It's a
we'll go
real
right
disaster.
off the bat. The
Can I
very
be
yeah. So
okay? Can I be transparent?
yeah.
I did not read your post.
Oh, you didn't read it?
I
Okay.
deliberately did not. I saw that it was long. I
Mm-hmm.
read like the first paragraph and I was like, oh, he really doesn't like it. And
Yeah.
then I immediately commented, I said, maybe we should just review it. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to read your entire post because I didn't want to spoil it for myself. Because
Yeah.
I knew I was going to have to watch it somewhere down the line. And I wanted to go in with zero expectations,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I went in with it too. And honestly, like for the first 5 minutes, I actually didn't think that this movie was that bad.
Yeah, no, immediately I could see that this movie was going to be it was going to be tough to get through. Immediately. The reason why I thought that was because they immediately decided they were going to introduce each character. Which I have no idea why you would introduce the characters in a SpongeBob movie. Because these characters have been around forever. Everybody already knows who everybody is. And so the fact that you are taking the time to introduce each character is a complete waste of time. So immediately, when I started introducing each character, I realized this movie's going down the wrong path.
I think I know why they did it, though. I
Why?
think I know why they did it. They did it because this movie is obviously marketed to a younger generation of viewers. Even though there's some weird jokes in there that I don't think are appropriate for younger viewers, it's very obvious that this is meant for younger people. So it's possible that they were trying to reintroduce all of them because, like, this movie is not, I don't think it's like a follow up to any other movie or a sequel to anything. It's just like its own standalone SpongeBob movie. So for all we know, time could have passed between the last SpongeBob episode and this movie coming out. So we don't know where the characters are in time. We don't know where they are in space. We don't know what's different with their lives. So I do think I feel like that's maybe why they were deciding to, like, let's reintroduce them. Let's set it up. Let's give some context to people's relationships.
So with
with
that in mind, are the characters different? Are they where are they in space and time? I believe they are exactly where we left them. They have not changed. Everybody's doing the same thing they've always done. So therefore, no reason to reintroduce these characters. These characters are based. So
the animation style is different, though.
That's
so I think that was a flex. That was a flex on the animator. They're like,
anyways,
we have to reintroduce them in a traditional sort of way in order to have people adjust to the fact that, oh, the SpongeBob characters look different. Nothing has changed. You're right. But the way that we view them is different because of the animation style.
Now, so that being said, do you think it was worth the time to introduce these characters?
So, here's the thing.
No, I just want to know, do you think it was worth the time? Yes or no? Was it worthwhile? I say no.
It's not an easy yes or no question.
It is for me. 100% no.
Off of the bat, no.
Yeah.
Now that I've seen the whole film, yes. Because that is the one semblance of familiarity that we get with the SpongeBob universe before it just takes off and you're not familiar with anything that's going on.
Yeah. So I watched the very first SpongeBob movie. After watching this one, because I wanted something compared to, because I remember I loved the first SpongeBob movie. And so I wanted to watch it again because I haven't seen it in a couple years. I want to see if it held up and also to compare it to this movie. And actually, there are a lot of similarities between the two movies. And it seems like this movie was almost a remake of the first movie, in a way.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, the first similarity is Plankton uses the king to get the Krabby Patty secret formula. That's, and he uses them both. He uses the king in the first movie. It's King Neptune. He steals the king's crown and uses that as a way to get rid of Mr. Krabs and steal the Krabby Patty secret formula. In this one, he kidnaps Gary and gives it to King Poseidon and uses that as a way to get rid of SpongeBob, thus ruining the Krusty Krab and then taking the Krabby Patty secret formula. So he uses the king to get the Krabby Patty secret formula. And also, he...
The fact that there's
not just... Yeah, and also, the similarities between the kings and Plankton. Plankton exploits the king's insecurities in order to get the Krabby Patty secret formula. So not only does he use the kings, he exploits their insecurities. In the first movie, the king was balding, and so he exploited that by stealing the crown and thus exposing the king's bald spot. And then in this one, he steals Gary to give to the king because the king was concerned about his beauty, and I guess the snail slime does that. So those are huge similarities. That Also, Plankton has exhausted all of his secret plans, and he thinks there's nothing I can do. I guess I'll just give up. And then Karen says, "Wait a minute, there's one more thing you didn't consider." And that happened in both movies. In the first movie, he used all his evil plans from A to Y. He forgot about Z. Karen's like, "What about Z?" He's like, "Z," and then he uses plan Z, which is steal the crown. In this one, he's like, "I've tried so many ways to steal the Krabby Patty secret formula, I can't do it. I cannot take down Mr. Krabs. I don't know what's wrong. And Karen says, but SpongeBob is the one who keeps getting in your way, And so when he realizes it's SpongeBob, he gets rid of SpongeBob.
Yeah.
So Karen is the one who makes a suggestion, and that eventually gets this Krabby Patty secret formula. That happens in both movies. Also,
Road tripping.
yeah,
Road
there's a road
trippers.
trip. So SpongeBob and Patrick go on a road trip. Uh, they also meet up with a live action character who helps them with their journey in both movies. In the first one, it was David
There's,
Hasselhoff. This one, it was Keanu Reeves. So, yeah, a lot of
oh,
similarities.
by the way, there's also an execution scene
Yeah,
in both of
execution
them.
scene. Yes. So you have execution scene in both movies. So yeah, I'm like they're ripping off a lot of plot
It's
points
the same
from
film.
from the first movie, except for the first movie was really really good. This one is not. Now here's so the issues I have with this movie is that, and I think you explained it pretty well, that the the plot is not very clear. Basically, the overlying thing is that Gary has been kidnapped and that SpongeBob has to get Gary back. Uh, but in the end, like none of the characters grow. Like that's the main plot. But that's not the theme of the movie. There is no real theme of the movie. It's get Gary back. In the first
Actually,
one.
no. There is another theme to the movie,
Mm-hmm,
and the theme is exactly the same theme as in the first movie,
mm-hmm,
which is SpongeBob's confidence and his maturity, right? Because in the first one, like, it was this whole like attack on the fact that he liked young things, like he's
mm-hmm.
a gooby gooba, yeah, and then they have
Yeah,
that whole thing where he's like a wizard and whatever, and that it's like this epic, there's like an epic musical sequence about it.
yeah.
In this film, it's still the thing, but it's like weird. It's like not really pushed to the forefront, or when it is, and when it is brought up, it's really in your face. They're like, my courage! Like, SpongeBob is like, I don't have any courage. But it's like, SpongeBob, we literally just went through this in the last movie, where you regained your courage. How do you suddenly not have it anymore?
Yeah, well,
It doesn't make any sense. And then finally, at the end of the film, he supposedly finds his courage. But instead of a grand musical sequence, he just stands up for himself and gives like a speech.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. In the first movie, he was, there's this whole thing about him being a kid, and he wanted to be a manager. He can't be a manager because he's a kid. Wow, now he has to save Mr. Krabs, but he can't save Mr. Krabs because he's just a kid, and and that keeps popping up, and that theme it goes throughout the entire movie from beginning to the very very end, and it gets brought up every once in a while, and you're reminded of it, and because the whole thing, if you look at the movie, what's the plot of the movie? It's that Plankton stole King Neptune's crown, and now King Neptune is going to execute Mr. Krabs, and SpongeBob has to save Mr. Krabs by getting the crown. That is the whole movie. That's the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you watch the movie, the actual theme of it is SpongeBob being a kid and trying to become a man, only to find out that uh, even that you can still be mature and do cool things and also be a kid at the same time. Like you can still
Yes.
be responsible and be a kid. You don't have to give up childish things just to get responsibility. And at that point isn't just proved to SpongeBob, but also to Mr. Krabs and everybody else in Bikini Bottom. They've all learned this lesson at the end of the movie, and yay! In this one,
Yes.
what
Yes.
did everybody learn? Nothing. This whole thing about SpongeBob and his courage, it was kind of like brought up in like weird moments, and it doesn't matter at all. Like none of the other characters care about SpongeBob's courage, so
I
that
mean,
was really
it's kind of hinted that, like, there's an entire courtroom scene where everybody talks about how much SpongeBob, like, means to them, and,
mm-hmm.
like, how much it was SpongeBob all along. But the thing is, the beginning of the film does not set it up that SpongeBob is a hated person.
Yeah.
He's been celebrated. With the exception of Squidward,
Mm-hmm.
but, like, he is celebrated consistently from the beginning
Yeah.
of the film. So all of a sudden, everybody like reconfirming what we already know.
Exactly.
That yes, SpongeBob is
Yeah.
an important person he's loved. Doesn't make any sense as to why why he doesn't feel secure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's a mixed. I had problems with the mixed messages.
Yeah. No,
There.
and that's
Um,
another scene
it
where I
was
feel like it was a big waste of time. So that was a huge thing. So at the beginning we have the introducing characters. I think it was a huge waste of time. We don't need that. Then we got this random scene where each character decides they need a flashback moment, and we take a couple minutes for each one to do their whole flashback. You know, talking about how they all met at a summer camp, which is this is the big difference between this movie and the series and everything, where they did not meet at a summer camp, and so that's where they weird time to change the SpongeBob canon, which SpongeBob canon is super loosey goosey anyways, but this time they said we're going to change everything. So, anyways,
yeah.
it turns out everybody met at this random summer camp, and and SpongeBob helped them out at some point in time, and so each character needs a flashback scene in order to show how this happened. But it's like, but this has nothing to do with the whole movie. Nobody
It
cares.
doesn't.
Yeah, and we
It
already
doesn't.
know.
It's so long. It's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
It's something that you would have thrown in if you were approaching this as a TV show.
Hmm.
Like I would have loved to see those scenes. Like, what if that was a spin-off show? You
Yeah.
know? Like, what if? You know what? Oh my God. What if the only reason they had that courtroom scene is to set up a sequel?
Maybe.
Where it's like
Yeah. Be like
SpongeBob camp
SpongeBob
blah blah blah.
kids. Like.
SpongeBob Kids, Tales from Camp Wakanakachu or something.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what the camp name is called. I don't even know if I don't even think they mention it. But like, I wonder if that was like all a weird corporate ploy. Also,
that might
can I
be.
mention?
Well, but it was just bad. It's a badly written story where yeah, and also it wasn't very entertaining at all. So I said in my initial review, I said that the target audience for this movie should have been an older audience, seeing that those are the diehard fans of the movie. And
Yeah.
but the all the humor was targeted towards a very young audience. There was no sophisticated humor, no mature humor like you would find in, say, the SpongeBob movie. The first SpongeBob movie had a couple moments where he had more mature humor, like when Plankton was looking at Plan Z, and he opens up the folder and he starts looking at it, and he's like eyeing it, and then it starts folding out, and it's like like that's a very mature joke where you've got the
Yeah.
fold out, the pen
I
starts
have
folding
to
out.
say,
But
in
so
terms of the humor, can I say something
yeah,
about the humor though?
go for
And
it.
that's the fact that I actually think that the humor was mature in this movie. It was just
I
very misplaced.
I
Really
didn't.
misplaced and not appropriate.
So
Like confusing?
I'm interested because you said that there was a lot of humor that was not appropriate. What do you mean by that? I'm
Mm.
curious.
So I wrote some things down. It has to do with the meta jokes and the fact that this movie is trying to not take itself too seriously
Hmm.
by proving that it can be funny. But there's some weird stuff in there that feels very Shrek. Like
Hmm.
they're trying to address the adults in the room, but it's kind of harsh.
Hmm.
Like right off the bat at the beginning of the movie, SpongeBob leaves Gary to go to work, and he's like, I'll miss you, but I'll be back before you think I've cruelly abandoned you.
Yeah.
And then he leaves. And it's like, was that supposed to be funny? That's
Hmm.
not funny. That's, ow.
Well,
Oh my God.
I just don't think it was delivered very well. So
No, none of the jokes are.
yeah.
Karen is funny. I wrote Karen is funny. Mr. Krabs feels really true to character. But I wrote down really adult, cynical jokes in here and stuff that doesn't make sense. So I wrote down here,
Hmm.
it was around the 8-minute mark, that I opened up a new category of what the f moments. I literally wrote it down.
Yeah.
What the f moments, and I started keeping track. 2 SpongeBobs in the kitchen. Now there are multiple SpongeBobs in the kitchen. Plankton has a Mr. Krabs voodoo doll, and he's stabbing the voodoo doll with pins. Again, meta humor, but adult humor. Kids would, that's not like like this, like no, it's not funny.
I
There's
don't.
some weird. There's like a French bit
Hmm.
SpongeBob does while he's cooking, and I was like, that's I don't know how to feel about that. There's another thing that Sandy says something about her AI being like a completely automated boss, and Patrick comes in, he's like, even for stomach aches, and I was like, is that funny? I don't know.
Hmm.
Um, he said, why is every plankton invention coin operated? Is he that broke? Um, why is King Neptune suddenly young and hot? Oh, because I didn't pick up the fact that the two kings were two different kings.
Yeah. Which,
That was
yeah,
another
that was
thing.
confusing. Yeah.
Here's another one. When they get to the entrance of Poseidon's city, okay, hear me. When they enter Atlantic City or whatever Poseidon's city is called, they read a plaque, and at the bottom of the plaque, it says a scary, vice-ridden cesspool of moral depravity.
Hmm.
What the Why are kids gonna? That's not funny, bro. Even to adults, that's really freaking cynical. And I repeat, a scary, vice-ridden cesspool of moral depravity.
Yeah. Well, the
Again,
thing is,
it's the
all
meta
of those,
jokes.
I feel like all those jokes could be funny, and that they could, if it's told the right way. I think they just missed all the beats. Like
They
every
really
single
did.
beat, they missed it.
Every
I
beat,
don't know how all the jokes fell flat. Every single joke fell flat. I don't
every
know how
joke,
they did it
everyone.
because
Even the Patrick ones. Because the
yeah.
Patrick ones are always kind of weirdly sexually inappropriate.
Mhm.
But like in the movie, they're just weird. Like the whole thing where like SpongeBob is like walking Gary, and Gary's like peeing behind the fire hydrant, and then all of a sudden Gary's gone, and it's Patrick with the leash in his pants,
Mhm.
like in his crotch area. It's like this is so uncomfortable.
Yeah. No.
I don't know. Am I deriving stuff that's not there? Am I the only one
No.
that thought it was uncomfortable?
I just think it was.
I also that scene when SpongeBob comes home to find that like Gary is missing.
Mhm.
That I don't know why I found that very emotionally hard to handle, because people who steal other people's pets for fun and then threaten to kill them or hurt them is abusive, and that's not. I have friends that have been in abusive relationships where that sort of thing has happened, where their partner steals their pet to get back at them. Um, I don't know, like that storyline really bothers me.
Mhm.
Um, it just really does. So that was another thing I was like, I have a problem, not just with the surface level things like jokes and the characters, but like I just have a problem with the story.
Mhm.
I just really have a problem with the story. And I don't like seeing Gary in peril, being
Yeah.
forced to crawl all over a dude's naked body. I just really don't. It's just very uncomfortable.
This whole story could have been told better. I
Right?
think.
This could have been the Lego movie.
Yeah. Well,
It's heading
also,
in that
you're
direction.
never really led to believe that all the snails are missing. That Gary is the last snail until the king, his servants say that there's no more snails left. I think one little change they can make just story wise that would make the rest of the movie come together. There's other stuff you need to cut out, like the whole flashback summer camp scenes. All that needs to be cut
Yeah.
out, and but what would tie the whole movie together in a nice little bow is still the wrapping would still be kind of crappy, but at least it's be presentable. Is if you were to introduce the fact that early on in the movie that Gary is the last snail, or so where people, even people in Bikini Bottom, are harassing SpongeBob about Gary and being like, "Hey, I need Gary. Can I use Gary? Gary's the last snail, or like I can't find another snail." It's just all of a sudden everybody's trying to get Gary or use Gary some way or whatever, and find that Gary is like in high demand, and and so SpongeBob needs to like protect Gary, and then that would help with the very last scene where all of a sudden everybody has a snail and everybody's happy, because that didn't make any sense at all, because nobody cares about snails. At the very beginning of the movie, nobody cares about snails. Gary's a snail, but nobody cares about Gary, right? And then at the very end, everybody's so happy because now they all have snails.
Everybody has,
But we
yeah.
never established that that was a problem at the beginning. And
Yeah. Can
so,
I say too? I mean, another thing that could have worked too is if they just said, if they had like a short scene showing people walking around the streets with their snails.
hmm
That way we wouldn't know that like that way we would have known that snails actually have an impact on the lives of people in Bikini Bottom and make their lives better.
yeah,
Because
or
like, the only
yeah,
thing we see is people mourning the loss of SpongeBob leaving because he's mourning the
hmm
loss of his snail, when really other people had their snails stolen too.
yeah,
Where are all those people?
hmm
Why aren't they walking around the streets?
yeah,
Why can't we derive all those angry people who can't get their Krabby Patties? How many of those people do you think lost snails and they're just being stingy about
hmm
not getting their Krabby Patties because their snail's gone? Like,
yeah,
I don't know, I'd be pretty on edge too. So
right,
like the fact that it goes from like, oh, the only person in the movie having a snail is SpongeBob, to
hmm
everybody being like, oh, we all get snails, like, and now it's a snail paradise, and now sea life and snails can live together in harmony
hmm
because somehow they weren't already.
yeah,
I don't know, like,
right. Well then, so another issue I have with this movie is the character development, or the changes in characters, whatever, as the story progresses. SpongeBob doesn't really have any character development. Neither does any other character in the story, except for the villains. So there's two main villains. There's Plankton, and then there's King Poseidon. And
yeah,
so Plankton, his character development happens off screen. We have no idea what happened. Somehow he turned 180. You know, they don't know how. Says he kidnapped Gary, and SpongeBob is gone. He got the Krabby Patty secret formula, and yay, everything's great. Then the next scene, we have Mr. Krabs and Sandy and Squidward are going to go on this adventure to get SpongeBob back, and then Plankton says, "I want to go with you too." No
yeah,
explanation at all. Why does he want
weird.
to get SpongeBob back? What changed? He didn't even make a Krabby Patties. Plankton did not make one Krabby Patty. So what was the point of all of
I
this?
think it was his defeat. I feel like maybe he lost motivation, like he didn't know what his purpose in life was once he finally got his hands on the Krabby Patty formula.
Yeah,
He
but
was like,
why?
"You're just giving it to me? I'm so confused." And so now he's like, "Well, I don't know what else to do, so let
Mhm.
me just tech."
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I
It
mean
doesn't make
that's a
sense.
good
It doesn't.
assumption. That's a very good assumption. But they didn't tell me that. They gotta tell me. Otherwise, I'm completely confused. And so you gotta let me know what made Plankton change. There was not enough information for me to know what it was, and so
Right.
now I'm just confused. And now, okay, well now Plankton, he was the villain of the story. Now he's a good guy. What? That,
Right.
so.
Yeah, and also they didn't establish his character enough outside of the motivation of just wanting a Krabby Patty. So
hmm
then he doesn't really have a discernible personality for the rest of the movie. Because
Yeah.
you're just like, because his only motivation the entire series has been the Krabby Patty formula.
Yeah.
Now that you have him deviating off of that, what's he gonna be like?
Right.
Nobody knows. And
hmm
honestly, we don't get an answer for that throughout the film either.
Yeah.
Um, so it's I don't know. It's very strange. Oh, and the thing I actually yeah, so Kevin, you are actually on the phone with me as I was watching the ending to this movie. I
Yeah.
literally watched it right before we filmed this. Um, where Poseidon does the 180.
hmm
He does a complete 180, and he's like, "You'll be my friend."
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just like, okay. Sorry, I have a lot to say about this movie too, Kevin.
hmm
Now I'm just like, ah! His motivations are also very unclear.
Yeah.
First, he's motivated by being a superficial person, and he's like, wrinkles. Oh my god, my face
hmm
and wrinkles. So I must put snails on me to make me beautiful.
Yeah.
Since when does not having friends become a factor in that? Because all of a sudden, everyone's like, well, no one here's your friend if you are like beautiful or whatever.
hmm
And now he's crying, and all of a sudden he's like, but no one's my friend?
Yeah.
I don't, like all of a sudden, there's
And that,
another drama that's
yeah,
coming out
right.
that we have to deal with.
And so, well, you could assume that King Poseidon is an evil person because he doesn't have friends, and so he's doing all this stuff to try to make friends. But the problem is, we or thought he had friends, and so then all of a sudden that goes away. So he already thought that everybody was his friend, and this is the first time he realizes they're not his friends, which means that him being concerned about the way he looks is just his character. That's just who he is. That's part of his identity. It has nothing to do with having friends or not. So therefore, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why do we care anymore? Why do we care
Yeah,
about this thing? So,
right. And then he immediately sheds that as soon as SpongeBob says,
mhm.
"Oh, well, I'll be your friend." He's like, "Oh, well, then in that case, I can drop all of this persona."
Yeah, but that wasn't established earlier. We established that this is just his identity. He's obsessed with the way he looks. Now all of a sudden it changes. No, he's only obsessed with the way he looks because he wanted friends.
He
But
wanted
then,
friends.
but it turns out he doesn't have any friends. As soon as he gets a friend, he drops it all. It's like, what? So then why? What was the
What?
motivation before him to try to look
Yeah.
good if it wasn't friends? But then it was friends. But now he's got friends, and now he doesn't need it. And
Like now
I'm
it's
so
just confusing.
confused.
Yeah. And then there's like, in my opinion, what I thought was a scene that went on a little too long, where he was shedding each individual thing that was holding him together.
Yeah.
Like he freaking takes off his body plate and like he's got a clip holding his neck fat together.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, ew. I don't know. Like I don't want to be. And again, like I'm not trying to be like you're allowed to look how you look. You feel
Mm-hmm.
confident in your own skin and your own body. But man, that animation style with the animation style combined with that scene
Mm-hmm.
was just not doing him any favors.
Yeah.
And like, I know that this doesn't have to do with Neptune's character. Sorry, Poseidon's character. But like, there were times, as much as I love the animation style, there were times that I don't think the animation style lent itself well
Yeah.
to the movie, and it made it actually kind of terrifying. Like some of the facials, I think I wrote something on here like facials are getting lost with the fact that like SpongeBob and Patrick and all of the characters are really, out there sort of characters.
Mm-hmm.
The animation tries to reflect that, but sometimes it doesn't reflect the voice acting
Mm-hmm.
that we're hearing.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's like a Lion King 2019 thing going on. Where like I'm hearing expressive voices and I'm seeing yummy. Where I'm hearing expressive voices, but I'm seeing faces that aren't like moving,
Mm-hmm.
or it's the exact inverse. The faces are like contorting themselves while they're speaking normal voices,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really kind of scary. Like I noticed it the most during that "Livin' La Vida Loca" scene,
Mm-hmm.
where like Patrick and SpongeBob are like at the carnival, they're at the
Yeah.
amusement park, and they're singing "Livin' La Vida Loca" with a bunch of fishes that they just met, and like they're getting drunk on the roller coaster and they're screaming and doing weird things.
Yeah.
And it's that same scene. It's a carbon copy of the scene that happened in the first movie,
Mm-hmm.
where they go to the ice cream shop and they
Yeah.
get ice cream drunk. Only instead here, it's just a barrage of colors and just a barrage of activities, and they're doing one activity after another activity with really horrifying faces.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then they wake up the next day and they're all hungover and stuff, which
Yeah.
is a lot scarier to see in the digital stop motion than it was in the 2D, to be
Yeah.
honest. Because it feels real. It feels like it's popping out at you, and I was just like, this is scary.
Yeah.
As a child, I think I would be kind of scared.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, that's just my opinion on the animation. I mean, it's beautiful. The
Mhm.
scenery's beautiful. The colors are so full of depth and life. I was like, I would love to see another film like this that has better writing. That is
Yeah.
not this film. I'd love to see this in a film that's not this film.
Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk about Snoop Dogg. That was the thing.
Let's talk about product placement and
Yeah.
the meta-ness of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you think about Snoop.
I thought that was the best part of the whole movie.
Really?
I thought, well, because I was about to walk away, and then Snoop Dogg comes out, and I'm like, okay, I'll stick around a little longer. But yeah, that was. I think that was the glue that held it together.
That was the trippiest drug sequence I have like ever seen. And I saw The Good Dinosaur back when
Hmm.
when the dinosaur and the kid actually take psychedelics and go through the weird thing.
Yeah.
But like that was so everywhere. Like
Hmm.
you got like
Yeah.
zombies in a saloon, and then El Diablo
Hmm.
like coming in, but then Snoop Dogg is like rapping and he's just randomly there. I don't
Yeah.
know. So you liked it? You thought it was the best part?
Yeah. I mean, in a
Yeah.
movie where nothing makes sense, I think I would happily invite Snoop Dogg into the just to
Right.
break it up a little bit. And so, yeah, I like Snoop, and I don't know, dancing pirate zombies in a Western saloon. Like, yeah, I think I think it was the most entertaining part of the entire movie. And then, sadly, it was only a few minutes long, and then it was done. But
Right. I have to say that like that and then some of the ending songs toward the end, like they have millions of views on YouTube
hmm
because it's so out of there. And honestly, it makes more sense out of context than it does in the context of the movie.
yeah,
That's how bonkers this plot is getting.
yeah,
That's why it's confusing to figure out what's happening. But yeah, I enjoyed the cameos. I wish that they weren't as long as they were. Like I thought Snoop Dogg's was appropriate.
hmm
I thought what's his name, Danny Trejo.
yeah,
I thought the length of his cameo was great.
hmm
But Keanu, can we talk about
yeah.
Keanu?
Keanu Reeves. So I, I've I've been having issues with his performances recently, especially with like kid movies or non-action movies. I don't know what's up with Keanu Reeves, but his performances have just not been very good. Like in Bill and Ted, it was I was disappointed. It was not what I yeah. I don't know what it is about his acting styles when it comes to playing roles that are less serious. You know. Well,
Yeah.
it-
I think he relies a lot on the fact that he's kind of become like this kind of mythic sort of celebrity
mhm,
that never ages. And so he likes, like in the beginning, he would capitalize off of it a lot.
mhm.
And I think it was great. Like it showed he had like a great sense of humor. Um, but now he's just doing that all the time.
Yeah. Well, and even in Toy Story 4, he was just doing voice acting, and even his voice performance was not that good. Is I don't know how you felt about him in Toy Story 4, but yeah, it was not the best
Yeah.
performance. Yeah, it's the same thing from Toy Story 4, and in this movie, like I feel like he's just giving the same type of performance, and
Right.
I, I don't know. I
I
feel
think it
like
would have been epic.
I
It would
feel
have
like
been
he's
epic.
I feel like he might think that he's doing better than he is. I don't know. I don't know if he
Yeah.
watches his performances back in these movies and he cringes a little bit, but I kind of cringe when I watch him.
This this performance in this movie was cringe. It
Yeah.
I think it was. But honestly, because I still love Keanu Reeves and I love the legend that is Keanu Reeves,
Mhm.
when he popped on the screen, I was like, no
Mhm.
way. And I was actually okay with it. Like for the first 5 minutes, I was like, okay, that's gonna be Keanu Reeves' random tumbleweed cameo. It's
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves' head in a lit up tumbleweed.
Mhm.
And then he just rolls away. I thought
Mhm.
that was hysterical.
Yeah.
However, he kept coming back
Yeah.
like frequently to the point where like he could have. I bet he's listed in the billing as being in this movie. I bet
Well,
he's getting
yeah, I'm
top
sure
billing
you wouldn't put Keanu Reeves
because
in here
he's
if you didn't.
actually in the movie.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy about this is that like in the first SpongeBob movie, it was used so sparingly with David Hasselhoff coming in at the
Mhm.
very end of the movie. That was freaking epic.
Yeah.
And he was in a show that actually related to the beach. So
Mm-hmm.
it made sense for him to be there.
Yeah.
And he was only there at the very end, and it just made the movie. It was great. But like now, all of a sudden, Keanu Reeves is actually in the movie as Keanu Reeves.
Right.
As a sage or something.
Yeah.
Get it? He's
Mm.
a sage.
Mm.
Also, he's a sage, but he's a tumbleweed. So actually, no, that doesn't make sense.
Isn't the tumbleweed a sage?
Is
Made of
tumbleweed
sage?
sagebrush?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, then that
Because
makes sense.
there
You can
isn't
delete that.
there isn't a plant. I don't think there is a plant called tumbleweed. Right.
That's yeah.
So I think the
Okay, never
tumbleweeds
mind. You
are
can delete.
sage. Okay.
You can erase what I just said about sage.
Sage.
Still though, I mean, it's still it's Keanu Reeves in a giant tumbleweed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sage.
Anyways.
And he imparts
Yeah.
weird advice.
Oh. But anyways, let's get into rating this movie. Michaela, how would you rate this movie?
Okay. Because there were times when I was entertained,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot is going on in this movie. There's just it's a lot. I think
Yeah.
I don't want to say that I'm gonna watch it again, but part of me wants to watch it again just because I want to. It like my brain like was not catching up, and
Mhm.
I don't even know if is it worth it to even watch it again.
I'm not
I
gonna
don't
watch
know.
it again. I'll tell you right
I'm so
now.
confused. I don't know. But this movie, like, you're gonna give it a worse rating than me. I'm very kind,
Yeah.
as you know. I'm giving it. It's getting a 1.5 out of 10 for me, dog.
Really?
Snoop.
Okay, so actually, I think I might be kinder than you. I get really frustrated when I watch a really bad movie. Like, I don't think there's any excuse to make a bad movie these days. I think the art of telling a story has, and I think I've explained this before, has been, it's been perfected over the past couple thousand years. I think we know how to tell a story, and this movie is a good example of how not to tell a story. And it's all in the writing. Anybody can read the script and say this doesn't make any sense. And so, how did it get made into a movie? It's ridiculous. So, but I love the animation style. I love Snoop Dogg. So I will give it a 2 out of 10.
Woo!
Yeah, so there you go.
Yay!
So, Michaela, what is your Cinepick for next week?
So next on the list is one of my favorite films. It's called Moana, made by
Okay.
Disney. I think it won the Oscar for Best Original Song.
I think so,
Like,
yeah.
So yeah, it's one of my personal favorites. What I was saying about it winning the Oscar, I have been singing this song. How far I'll go. Yeah, I have the actual. I'm kind of a Moana obsessed person. I love Moana, and while I admit it does have its flaws, I universally just generally adore Moana, and I think that you should watch it.
Okay.
Shit.
Sounds good to me, so watch it.
Thank you so much, all you Cinepickers, for watching Kevin and I deconstruct our latest 2 Cinepicks. Make sure to like and hit the subscribe button for more videos like this, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, goodbye.
Bye!